Pursued my dream. As a photographer, lost my parents' support, until they learned. Pursued my dream as a photographer, lost my parents' support until they learned about my six-figure income. My parents went completely crazy when I decided to try my hand at fashion photography instead of attending college after high school. For months we quarreled over this. Ultimately they informed me that they would never forgive me and would stop interacting with me if I chose to go down this route rather than earning a college degree. Knowing that my connection with my parents was not my top concern at the moment, I did not let that deter me. My goal was to become a fashion photographer, and I did just that. They were furious with me and avoided talking to me for a few years. I found it really challenging, particularly because I was so young and needed assistance from other family members. Most of the assistance I required was monetary. I had only ever worked summer jobs part-time before, and the money I had saved was insufficient to support myself in a new place. I was in dire need of help because at the time I was an intern and didn't get paid much. Fortunately, my dad's older sister, my aunt, frequently sent me the money I needed to pay my bills naturally. My aunt had a soft spot for me because I had always been close to her daughter as a child. Even with her help, I occasionally still felt very alone after I left home. My brother and dad began to act as though I didn't even exist, so I didn't have the support of my immediate family because it would cause friction between them. My aunt never disclosed to my father that she was providing financial support for me. Without a doubt, he would blame her for pushing me to make poor choices in spite of this. My aunt informed me of my parents' reactions to my decision. She would always bring me up to them when she saw them, but they would usually still react negatively. It was discouraging to hear them abruptly shift the subject. Then one year they suddenly demanded that I spend the holidays at home so that we could get back in touch. In the end, I returned that year to try again with our relationship. They were pretty normal about the whole thing, which surprised me because I had expected an emotional reunion. My mother later informed me that they knew I wouldn't alter my mind, so they made the decision to get in touch with me. Furthermore, they didn't want to be seen as the type of parents that didn't encourage their kids' goals and aspirations because that would come across negatively. I came to see that rather than truly respecting my choice, they had only contacted me to protect their brand. Despite my disappointment, I made the decision to keep in contact with them in the hopes that they would someday reconsider their opinion of me. They have never seemed to be as proud of me as they are of my brother, even though I have told them about all of my successes over the previous few years. After earning a business degree, my brother began working with a friend of my dad's. He makes a nice living, and my parents are always boasting about how he started providing for them as soon as he started working. I did offer to assist them monetarily, so it's not that I hadn't, but because of my unusual line of work they turned me down, saying they wouldn't feel comfortable taking my money because they weren't sure I could live comfortably without it. I was aware that this was not a sincere worry. It served as just another reminder that they didn't think I was performing well enough and would much rather rely on my brother. I was never going to be good enough for them no matter what I did. They relied on my brother instead of believing me even after I assured them that I was okay and could help. It wasn't like they didn't require assistance. They have been having financial difficulties for the past few years, particularly following the pandemic about 2 years ago. My parents had to close the cafe they owned and retire early because of significant losses sustained during the pandemic. My brother began providing them with financial help. At that point it was quite offensive that they refused to assist me. In spite of this, I stopped insisting on staying in contact with them. After that, the only times we would see each other at family gatherings, where I would try to be as polite as possible since I knew they wouldn't value me. I even stopped spending the holidays at home rather than they would take advantage of the occasion to criticize and ridicule my decisions. I was done with that negativity. I no longer needed it in my life. Since then our relationship has gotten much worse and we hardly ever communicate because I dislike discussing it. Very few family members are aware of my feelings. My cousin who recently got engaged is one of the few who did. My family was invited to her engagement party a few days ago, but I was also invited. Regretfully, my illness prevented me from attending. After years of not speaking to me, my parents finally called me while I was away because of a chat my cousin had with them. I need to explain what my cousin told me before I talk to my parents about the phone call. As soon as I finished talking to my parents, I contacted my cousin to talk to her about it. She informed me that my parents had been boasting at the engagement party about my brother's big promotion at work and how he would now be making nearly twice as much as he had before. My cousin claimed that it was starting to irritate her. I'm not sure if that's accurate or if they were exaggerating. In addition to making the entire celebration about themselves, they were utterly disregarding the fact that either other kid was succeeding in her life on par with, if not better than her. She was aware that despite my best efforts to pretend otherwise, my connection with my parents clearly had an impact on me. Even though I had accomplished a lot, I felt like I could never do enough to make them proud of me. I found that to be really distressing. My cousin chose to defend me since she was aware of this. My relative mentioned how wonderful it was that they now had 2 children earning 6 figures annually as my parents were boasting about my brother. My parents, who hadn't bothered to stay in contact with me over the previous 2 years, were understandably startled since I didn't think it was necessary. I had never disclosed my income to them. My parents called me the following day after my cousin dropped that bombshell without providing any further details. I was taken aback when they called them, inquired as to whether I had been making 6 figures annually and whether I had been doing so for a number of years, thinking they were finally calling to congratulate me and express their pride. I made the decision to be honest with them. They said they couldn't believe they had been forcing my brother to provide for them financially when I had been doing so well, which was really foolish and delusional of me. They had the gall to become upset rather than happy for me. They chastised me for not informing them of my earnings sooner so they could make an informed decision about which child should provide them with financial support. I couldn't speak in retrospect. That was exactly the reaction I should have anticipated, but it was not the one I had anticipated. Me. Tell you what occurred next if you think that's awful. My parents began to explain how they had put a lot of pressure on my brother when I didn't reply. They said that he had been too busy providing for them to save enough money for his own future. They maintained that I should now pay 0,000 in reparations to help even things up because I hadn't been burdened in the same manner. They rationalized it by claiming that they were also my parents and that I had to share my brother's responsibility. They made it seem as though I had been avoiding accountability, utterly disregarding the fact that they had initially turned down my assistance. After giving their request some attention, I erupted in laughter and hung up. The scenario was so ridiculous that it was the only response I could summon. I then gave my cousin a call to get the whole narrative and to double-check the information. I have been deliberately avoiding my parents ever since. After the call I banned their number, but they began texting me from a burner phone, which I also blocked in every one of their mouths. I was accused of concealing my earnings. They said they would never have requested my brother for help and would have accepted my help instead if they had known about it sooner. Recently I also received a text from my brother, who usually avoids similar situations. He stated that he thought our parents had a point, but he didn't want to pick sides. He acknowledged that they ought to have been more encouraging and that they had mistreated me, but he also said that I should have told them exactly how much I made rather than leaving them in the dark if I really wanted them to accept my assistance. When I first offered it, maintained that they couldn't have known I was doing so well for myself because this isn't a career they understood well. He said that he had been the only one providing for our parents up until this point and that he thought it only right that I do the same. I owe it to them because they reared me, he reminded me, and whether I like it or not, they are also my parents. I'm bewildered now. I'm sorry for my brother, but I'm not sorry for my parents. Although we haven't had a fantastic relationship, it hasn't been as horrible as our relationship with our parents. He could have a point though, and I can't deny that it is bad of me to keep my actual income a secret from my parents. Since people are curious as to why I never told my parents how much I made, the answer. First of all, I dislike discussing my income. I want people to trust me when I tell them that I have enough to aid them, especially my parents. Why would I pretend that I had the money to provide for them? Second, money isn't the only metric I use to gauge my achievement. For me, success is about following my dreams and realizing them, not about how much money I make. When I first began, I felt just as accomplished since I had followed my passion and defied the odds. In addition to being wealthy, I wanted my parents to be proud of me for being content and successful in my line of work. Finally, I never realized that in order to get their approval I would have to be specific about my salary. I suppose I've had some delusions about them throughout my life. Eventually I thought they would treat me the same way they treated my brother, but that never materialized. Before any of this occurred, I did discuss this with my cousin, who informed me that I shouldn't have needed to disclose my income to my parents in order for them to treat me like their child. At least someone was on my side, so it was a tremendous relief when she told me that I hadn't done anything wrong. Additionally, I am positive that my aunt shares my cousin's viewpoint, but what really irritates me is that my brother, who had previously been impartial, is suddenly opposing me. I'm open to any suggestions you may have because I haven't decided whether or not I should feel bad about it. First update. Hello, I appreciate all of your remarks. I suppose I needed that because going through them was a true eye-opener for me. Actually, I had started to think that perhaps I was mistaken, but I no longer believe that to be the case. I blocked my brother as well after realizing that despite his initial neutrality, it had not aided me in any way. Unlike my aunt and cousin, who both defended me, he never. In all honesty, my brother is only supporting my parents today because they have never given him a reason to oppose them, in contrast to me, who undoubtedly has a number of reasons. I responded to his message prior to blocking him. Although he didn't grow up in the same household as me, I informed him that I still respected the idea that he was making the extra effort to defend our parents. He can never really comprehend what I've gone through since the parents he knows are so different from the parents I know. His statement that I owe it to our parents to assist them whether I like it or not. It was incredibly unjust. I owe them nothing. Nothing at all. Anything they did for me prior to my 18th birthday was required by law, not as a favor. I left home to pursue my aspirations as soon as I was no longer a minor. They didn't support me or even spoke to me for the next few years after that. My aunt, not my brother, or my parents had supported me during that period. My cousin provided me with emotional support the entire time. I seldom ever think of my brother or parents as family because they have never supported me. My aunt is the one person I owe the most to. My brother been providing for our parents alone for the past few years, and I don't blame him for that. It's not that I didn't offer assistance, in fact I did, but they turned me down. I decided to cut them out of my life because of that. They also didn't appear to be in any worse shape without me. They haven't apologized to me, but now that they know how much I earn, they expect me to make it right. That's entitled unfairly, and I don't think I have to put up with it. I decided I didn't want to talk to my brother more after sending him that message, so I blocked him as well. Neither my brother nor my parents have messaged me since. My aunt, however, got in touch with me and informed me that my brother must have forwarded my message to my father. I had stated in the mail that my aunt had helped me out when my parents hadn't. My father went crazy over it, as we had anticipated, and started blaming my aunt for misguiding me. He thinks I wouldn't have deviated so much from my parents if my aunt had never encouraged me and had instead advised me to return to them and follow their rules. He maintains that we would have a far better connection now. If it had occurred to me to be honest, I have no idea why someone would think this. In all honesty, I would have found another means to follow my aspirations. Even if my aunt hadn't assisted me, I would not have abandoned them. I wouldn't be earning as much money or enjoying my career as much if I hadn't been able to pursue a career in photography rather than would be angry at my parents for preventing me from pursuing my own interests. How would our relationship be enhanced by that? It would have significantly worsened the situation. My aunt is currently being used as a scapegoat, which seems to be all they need. They have been accusing her of being a bad sister in their constant messages. They say that instead of supporting me, she would have persuaded me to return to my parents if she had been a decent sister. My present bad behavior, which they say has always been praised, is attributed to her. They have even implicated my cousin in this, claiming that it is not surprising that she has become impolite and uncultured. They contend that because my cousin called them out at her engagement party, this illustrates my aunt's incapacity to raise children appropriately. My parents are essentially acting irrationally. My aunt is certain that they won't let this go despite the fact that she has barred them. They are intent on making a big deal out of it and playing the victim in a predicament they started. I truly don't know what else I can say to my brother if he still believes that supporting our parents is appropriate in light of everything that has happened. I suppose I should have anticipated it. Perhaps this isn't unexpected because although he never mistreated me, he also never defended me. Second update. Hello, I haven't posted anything for the past 2 weeks. My parents made the decision to make this drama public for some reason. They have posted a number of posts disparaging my aunt and myself in the last several days, and I honestly have no idea what they are trying to accomplish. They have been promoting a biased narrative in these posts. They say that despite the fact that photography is an unstable career, my aunt pushed me to pursue it against their wishes. They also claim that I rejected their attempts to patch things up with me. They claim that when they recently requested financial assistance from me, I ostensibly offered but minimized my income. As a result, they had to rely on my brother, which has had an impact on his financial security. I'm still refusing to assist and placing all the weight on my brother, even though they're acting as though they just recently found out the whole truth about my financial status. A large portion of their story is false, and it is entirely biased. I don't want to interact with them on social media, and neither does my aunt. We've been attempting to get in touch with them privately to request that they remove the posts. I even warned them that if they didn't comply, I would get legal help, but because no one is going to waste their money on a lawyer for something like this, I suppose my parents can see I'm bluffing. This is a minor nuisance, but it's not like it's having a significant impact on me. Many people, including those I haven't spoken to in years, have contacted me to inquire about the issue. The way they are handling this as a show bothers me a lot. I want my parents to remove their posts, because I may have to share my side of the story with my aunt if they don't. Asking them to remove the posts hasn't worked at all thus far, but neither of us wants to do that. We might eventually have to publicly present our case. We should go ahead according to my relative, but I'm sick of anticipating all the drama that will ensue. In any case, we must take the necessary action. Third update. My last post was 2 days ago, and as I previously stated, we were at a loss on what to do. In the end, my aunt and I posted the truth, not just our version of events, in order to dispel my parents' biased story. We wanted to correct the record. My parents haven't made any public remarks about it yet, but many people have left encouraging remarks. The rest of the family hasn't been as ignorant as I initially believed. It turns out many of them have observed throughout the years how my parents have been more publicly proud of my brother and have always treated him better than I have. Getting all of this support makes me very happy. At least I now know that in my heart they supported me, even though they had never previously spoken out about it. That is reassuring. But when my brother sent me an email with his reply, wasn't encouraging. I was advised that what I was doing was seriously messed up. He claimed that he had been attempting to manage the problem with our parents and had nearly persuaded them to remove their posts. However, they are now refusing to do so because I posted my set. He claimed that I wasn't the kind of a person who would add fuel to the fire and stir up more controversy. He's correct. I didn't want to make things worse, but I had no other option. My brother has treated me unfairly. In my opinion, this was started by our parents, not by me. I only spoke the truth to avoid needless hatred toward my aunt and me. It's possible that my parents should have considered the repercussions before making such a fuss. I don't think I have anything further to say to my brother at this time. It is obvious that he has chosen a side, and it is not mine. In any case, I had no desire to communicate with my parents. I don't mind at all if they all want to completely cut me out of their life. Fourth update. Hi everyone, the last update was quite a few months ago. Recently returned home to attend the wedding of my cousin as her maid of honor. I performed all of my responsibilities for her for about a month before the wedding. She informed me that neither my brother nor my parents had received an invitation. They shouldn't have been surprised by this because it was obvious that neither my aunt nor my cousin wanted anything to do with them following the events of a few months earlier. I don't see why my parents thought they would be invited when they hadn't even tried to apologize to any of us following the incident. They were not just disappointed that they hadn't received an invitation, but they had also expected one. They even came to shout at my aunt when she was at her residence. My father was incensed and informed her that she couldn't abandon him for such a little matter, coming from a dad who essentially pulled his daughter out of his life. That is rather ironic. My aunt quickly put him in his place after putting up with his antics after a heated argument that day. My parents are now ranting about us to anyone who would listen. I don't think anyone is taking them seriously, though, as it looks like most of them are just looking to gossip. My brother has not gotten back to me, although it is unfortunate he has made the decision to support our parents. Everything went off without a hitch, and the wedding was stunning. The icing on the cake was that I also got to spend a lot of time with my aunt and cousin. I've returned to work after a much-needed vacation. Knowing that my parents haven't altered at all in all these months is comforting.